What's up, people? Cav here. Fresh out the sauna. World's grey. Skies are turning blue. The heavens are opening. Ooh. 2-6. We're doing good. It is Monday, the 8th of September. Mid-afternoon. Ended up spending a lot of the weekend thinking, feeling, digging, quantifying, and there was some chilling in between all of that. But yeah, it was a late night last night. I've been pretty good with my sleeping routines recently. Like, I've actually got back into a more somewhat rigorous sleeping routine. But last night was just one of them nights, you know. One of them nights. I feel like we're approaching a very, very, as Giver would say, interesting spot. A very interesting spot. And I'm like slowly getting clarity, slowly but surely getting clarity from the low to a higher time frame view. And yeah, I don't really know where to start here. But I guess I'm actually just gonna go like straight at it with like what is my current view and try and give it like a level of granularity that like is actually insightful. But once again, you know, like trying to fucking predict where an asset's gonna travel and the trajectory and the pace and the time at which it takes to do so is obviously not a fucking easy gig. So like, you know, I don't claim to be somebody that can see into the future. I look at a lot of things, you know, I have a relatively, you know, good intuitive feel for things, have my own unique lenses on things, but that doesn't give me a fucking cheat code. So like what I will give is like my opinion as things stand. And where I'm actually at right now is we are gonna run into the middle of September. We are going to see a bit of a euphoric but like short burst of euphoria, especially focused like sort of on the mimetic side, it feels. I think Bitcoin is gonna rise towards 117, 118. ETH will still underperform on that bounce. Solana will outperform, so I think we'll see ETH BTC underperformance on this bounce. We'll see Sol BTC outperformance, right? And then what I think is going to happen, and I can talk to like, you know, my like gut sense on how the FOMC is going to go, but really been thinking about this from like a distribution perspective. How is Jerome Powell going to thread the needle to where the market actually perceives this as a bullish cut? How is he going to thread that needle? Because like, to me, the market now pricing in 50 bips, you know, with a 10th probability that takes place, right? The market's pricing in 50 bips and the long end was nosediving on Friday. That isn't like, oh, the labour market's fine. That's like, Mr. Powell's behind the fucking curve. Right? And if we do still have elevated inflation, somewhat, and we're now pricing in 70 bips, 75 bips into the end of the year, pretty nailed on. Like, how is he gonna, what I think is that there's just a bit of downside asymmetry here. Alright, where the language I think that he'll use will make the market question itself a little bit. And with that, you know, potentially cracks in the labour market, potentially deterioration in the labour market. These are the types of language that I think could make the market question itself a little bit, right? And like, I'm not saying, oh, these cuts are gonna be like panic cuts and they're gonna drive like a big, like, you know, leg lower on equities. I think it will just bring in a sense of doubt. All right, and it'll bring in a sense of doubt. And I think what we could see over the following couple of months is a 5 to 10% move in equities to the downside. Right, and I think what's gonna happen is corn is actually gonna rip up into 117, 108. You're gonna see a lot of leverage builds. You're gonna see a lot of chasing down the risk curve. It's gonna get very frothy and very euphoric. Everybody, like, bears are gonna look fucking stupid. Like, the ones that aren't convicted and haven't done their homework and don't have conviction are gonna pivot and probably top blast, right, and capitulate and go, fuck it, yeah, we're getting rate cuts, like, we're going to all-time highs, like, everyone's gonna be like getting over their heels, right? And then we're gonna stall. We're gonna stall at 118. We're gonna stall, we're gonna chop, and then there's gonna be a piece of language that's gonna make the market question itself, and it's gonna take the sting out of that euphoria, sting out of that risk on momentum, right? You're gonna get post-OPEX, you're gonna start to see a window of weakness where you don't have the structural support with option flows, the Vanna and Charm. Right, and then equities are going to roll a little bit, and core's going to roll a little bit more. And what does that then feed into from a time-based perspective? They missed the 4-year cycles. Right, so what we're going to have here, I think, is we're going to have a late squeeze in the next 10 to 12 days into next week, potentially, you know, maybe middle of next week. We're gonna have a squeeze, it's gonna be euphoric, it's gonna be risk on, fucking, you're gonna get all the dogs and cats ripping like fuck. Everybody's gonna get a bit head over heels. And we're gonna stall. Equities are gonna roll, corn's gonna roll harder. And then that really does play into the 4-year cycle. So you're gonna have all of them coming out, all of the top callers, you know, going, right? And then what's going to happen, I think, over the next month is that narrative will gain momentum. You're going to continue to see, you know, slight signs of stress from a liquidity perspective. We've already started to see that. Michael Howell's recent note, go read it if you haven't already. He is the liquidity man, a man who I respect, you know, dearly for his work. And he's starting to sort of ring the alarm bell, at least the early signs of that, right? Look, I don't have a well-versed enough take to discuss the underlying dynamics in the repo market, but like what you can say is that, you know, we are starting to see objective signs of stress, and I'll lean on Howell for that. So with that in mind, alongside the chart that I posted a few days ago, right? So the financial conditions are tightening and risk is increasing, right? That tide is going out. So there's a world in which we have 2 weeks of mutual inclusivity where liquidity, you know, the liquidity tide is moving out, credit spreads potentially widen, you still keep the long end going down, but you still see euphoria and risk on in the crypto curve, right? But like that mutual inclusivity doesn't last forever. And I think it has, you know, a half-life of about 2 weeks, right? So then what happens, you know, Bitcoin rolls at 118, nosedives, takes out the recent lows. I said this in the recent video, right? I was like, we pop higher to 117 and then roll and take out that new low. It's gonna be scary and everybody's gonna be going, uh-oh, it's fucking over. It's over, right? And then what happens, we probably chop, leg lower, and I think we'll put in the low in and around the mid to low 90s, right? Sometime in October. That's my base case. That's where I'm like, my gut is telling me. That's where I feel, you know, most strongly. We put in the low in October, right? And that's where you'll start to see the OI unwind. That's where you'll start to see a bit of a deleveraging. You know, and this is all within a world in which equities have a 10% correction. It's not out of this world, right? Equities haven't put a structural higher low in yet. It's been up only for fucking 5 months. So right, so that takes us to October. We put a real pivot low in, mid to low 90s, bounce aggressively out of it, right? And then we can start to build structure, right? Everybody that's kind of cool at the top and like subscribe to the 4-year cycle, they've obviously got rid of their coin. They're like, yeah, it's over, we'll fucking chill for another 360 days and then we'll go and buy the lows. Wrong. Don't think that's gonna happen. We're gonna form a structural low from a base of mid to low 90s in October into November. Right, and by that time equities have already bottomed, they're starting to budge higher, and people are starting to go, ooh, yeah, like dollar still pretty weak, like, you know, no financial crisis, we had a liquidity tightening, but like, you know, whether that's Jerome ending QT, starting sort of low-key balance sheet expansion again, or Besson bringing issuance, you know, more towards the front end, whether he does some sort of issuance fuckery to just loosen things up a little bit again. You start to see financial conditions ease, credit spreads start to tighten a little bit again, and then you're going licking your lips, you're thinking, ooh, like Bitcoin's putting a structural sort of low in here, it's been bottoming, shook everybody out that thinks it's a 4-year cycle, and then you start to see them green shoots again. Them green shoots that look, oh, they look incredibly good. Takes me back to September last year. Yen-mageddon was the low, bounced. Where did we go? Like 50. Anyway, bounced from Yen-mageddon, went maybe 62. Maybe not that high. Lower high, and then we put the structural pivot low in at 54k. I remember it was a Sunday evening. We actually called that bottom. And then we saw the green sprouts, but like them structural bottoms where you just start licking your fucking lips again. We would have had all of the capitulation, we would have had all of the fear. You know, victory laps by the 4-year cycle, guys, only to be left with no coin when we rip higher from like 100 in November. And like, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm getting pulled to. From everything that I look at and just like, you know, my gut really, really takes me there. Like, and I'm building conviction in it. That's why I'm like, well, I'm long the dogs now. Like, I do think we get this little pocket of risk on. It's gonna suck everybody in and spit them back out. And suck them in and spit them back out. So yeah, like, that's just want to like get that off my chest, you know? I haven't got a horoscope, but that's my take. That's my take. That's where we're at. Alright, well look. Obviously I'll keep you guys posted. But yeah, that's the playbook for me for now, until proven otherwise. Ciao for now.